Though we think that we're doing good and helping the environment by recycling, the fact is that we have been lied to, originating from the plastics manufacturers. The recycling process consumes more resources, energy, labor, capital, and other materials than would be consumed if non recycled virgin materials were instead used. The exception is the recycling of metals, which does save resources. So we think we're saving resources by recycling, but we end up using more resources in the process. So think about it. When we recycle, we have one set of trucks, laborers, business offices, tools, etc., that come and pick up trash, and a different one picks up the recycling. Two different sets of uh, means of production. That's duplicative, it's redundant, and it's very costly. And then when you get those materials to the recycling um, sites, it's not profitable for those entities to actually do the recycling given the prices they can get out of them when they resell them. It's a costly process. That is why we're forced to recycle in many cities. In my city, in Decatur, Georgia, we're compelled by law to recycle. And we have to pay taxes so that the local government can pay the recycler to do the recycling. Otherwise, it's not profitable. And if it's not profitable, that means it's using more resources than it costs. It's consuming resources. Uh, Monetary profits are the same as resources. Money just represents goods and services, which are made by materials and natural resources. So again, if a process is unprofitable, it uses more resources than go into it. Or more, you're using more resources uh, that go into it than you're getting out of it, than you can sell it for. So something that is economically unprofitable is environmentally destructive because of the excess of resources that are being used. So I would like to give you some brief evidence that supports, well, first, um, let me just state that you can do a Google or AI search yourself, and you'll see that what I'm telling you is an open secret. This is common knowledge that even left wing media sources that are usually telling you you should recycle, and they still tell you that, but if you catch them in the right time in the right articles, they will tell you that it uses more resources than we get out of it. Again, except for metals. So, so the left wing sources tell you this. The recycling industry knows this. It's common knowledge at recycling meetings and conventions. Again, it's an open secret. So, with that knowledge, here's a little bit of information to further provide facts and data to convince you. One, it takes twice the amount of trucks, people, materials, etc., to recycle versus just pick up trash. I've already said that. So, for example, the Maine EPA says, quote, it cost an average of 67% more to recycle than to dispose of packaging in the state. The New York Times says it costs 2 to 3 times more to collect a ton of recycling than to just bury it in a landfill. Recycled plastics, the cost to buy those materials, costs 35% more, and that's with taxpayer subsidies included. Recycled paper costs 2 to 50% more, with taxpayer subsidies included. Again, if it costs more, it is using more resources. By contrast, recycled aluminum costs much less than virgin aluminum. Plastic can be recycled once, maybe twice. Metals can be recycled infinitely. Greenpeace's very large study from a couple of years ago says to never recycle plastic because, number one, it's extremely difficult to collect. Two, it's virtually impossible to sort for recycling. Three, it's environmentally harmful to reprocess. Four, it's often made of and contaminated by toxic materials. Five, it's not economically viable. And six, sorting and rinsing plastic is a waste of time and resources that emits CO2. Another point, recycling emits more CO2, pollution, contaminated wastewater, and microplastics. Recycling plants emit toxic pollutants. 13 of the 50 worst EPA Superfund sites, or hazardous waste sites, are currently or were at one point recycling facilities. It takes more water to recycle newsprint than to make it afresh. And it releases tons of toxins and pollutants. It creates sludge, etc. I mean, think about all the chemicals that you have to put on newspaper to separate the newsprint from the paper. That creates you're using a lot of chemicals to do it, and taking all the newsprint off results in a lot of, as it says, sludge. Next, we pay both direct fees and taxpayer subsidies to recycling companies to recycle our trash. It would otherwise not be profitable for them. I've already touched on this. We are paying, in essence, for dumpster diving. If we have to pay others to take our trash, we are not saving resources. If it saved resources, it would be profitable. If it were profitable, we would not have to pay to have it done. In short, if we have to be prodded, poked, persuaded, taxed, and forced by law to recycle, it's not what it's made out to be. Also, just so you know, we're nowhere close to running out of resources, and landfills are safe, effective, and have plenty of room. We hardly use any space at all, relatively speaking, for landfills, and we could keep piling trash in landfills for thousands of years and you wouldn't notice the difference. Look around you, you never see them. You go in a plane, you don't see landfills most of the time. They're not taking up that much space. So that is the short of recycling. We think that we're saving resources, but most of the time we're using more resources. It's not an economically or environmentally viable undertaking, and you're not saving the planet. It was all a lie, started originally by the plastics industry, some also by the oil industry. By the way, I didn't mention that of all the plastics you throw in recycling, only about 9% tops gets actually recycled. Most of what you put in recycling ends up going to the landfill anyway, and that's a good thing. That is what's actually helping the planet. It doesn't feel like it given what you've been told all these years, but what you've been told all these years is mostly not true. So, if you want to help the earth, don't recycle, except for metals.